The crystal glass slipped from the billionaire's wife's hand and shattered across the marble floor, but nobody looked at the broken glass. Every eye in the restaurant was fixed on the young waitress standing completely still beside table 7, holding a small notebook against her chest. Moments earlier, the woman had called her illiterate in front of everyone, laughing as if the word were a joke. But what the waitress did next would expose a truth so powerful that even the billionaire himself would struggle to speak. If you believe kindness can change a life and that everyone deserves a second chance, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. You never know whose heart might need a story like this today. The restaurant was one of the most expensive places in the city, a sunlit palace of white marble, gold-trimmed walls, and enormous windows overlooking the afternoon traffic. Wealthy businessmen sat beneath elegant chandeliers while soft piano music floated through the air. Among them was Mirella Voss, the glamorous wife of billionaire Cashin Voss, a woman known for her expensive taste and even sharper tongue. She had arrived for a private lunch with her husband, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than the waitress's entire yearly salary. Standing quietly beside their table was a 19-year-old waitress named Saphira Bell, whose simple uniform could not hide the exhaustion in her eyes. She had been working since early morning, but she smiled politely because smiling was part of the job. Saphira had grown up in a tiny apartment with her grandmother after losing her mother when she was young. Her father had disappeared from their lives before she could remember his face. School had once been her escape, and she had dreamed of becoming a teacher, but when her grandmother became unable to work, Saphira had left school temporarily to earn money. She carried textbooks beneath her bed and studied whenever she had a few quiet minutes. She refused to let poverty convince her that she was stupid. Every night, after finishing her shift, she read until sleep defeated her. That afternoon, Mirella ordered a complicated meal and then asked Saphira to explain one of the ingredients. Saphira answered correctly, but when she struggled to pronounce the French name of a wine, Mirella laughed loudly. Several nearby customers turned their heads. Mirella leaned back and announced that it was obvious the girl had never received a proper education. Saphira quietly apologized and tried to continue taking the order, but Mirella was not finished. She told her husband that restaurants should hire educated people instead of girls who could barely read a menu. The word struck Saphira harder than any slap. Cashin looked uncomfortable, but before he could respond, Saphira noticed something on the table. Mirella had been reviewing documents beside her handbag, and one page had fallen onto the floor. Saphira bent down to pick it up. Her eyes moved across the page, and her expression changed. It was a business contract. Saphira recognized the company name because she had seen it in one of her grandmother's old newspapers. She looked at the figures, then at Cashin, and politely said that she believed there was a serious error in the document. Mirella burst into laughter again, asking whether the illiterate waitress had suddenly become a financial expert. Saphira's hands trembled, but she did not step back. She explained that the percentage written in the agreement did not match the calculation in the following section. The difference was not a few dollars. It represented millions. The room slowly became quiet. Cashin took the document from her. He checked the numbers once, then twice. His face lost its color. His attorney had prepared the contract that morning, and Cashin was supposed to sign it that very afternoon. Saphira carefully explained how she had noticed the mistake. She said she enjoyed mathematics and had been teaching herself advanced accounting from borrowed books. She admitted that she had never finished school, but education, she said softly, was not the same thing as intelligence. Sometimes people simply had to learn in places nobody expected them to. No one moved. Cashin immediately called his attorney. Within minutes, the error was confirmed. If he had signed the contract, his company could have suffered a massive financial loss. Mirella stared at Saphira as though seeing her for the first time. Then Saphira did something even more unexpected. Instead of humiliating Mirella in return, she walked toward the broken glass, picked up the fallen pieces carefully, and said that everyone could make mistakes, especially when they were judging someone too quickly. Those words broke something inside Cashin. He asked Saphira where she had learned mathematics. She told him about her grandmother, the old textbooks beneath her bed, and the dreams she had abandoned because bills came before dreams. Cashin listened silently. Then he asked whether she would be willing to return to school. Saphira lowered her eyes. She said she could not afford it. Cashin looked toward Mirella. For the first time that afternoon, his wife had nothing to say. A week later, Saphira received a scholarship covering her education and living expenses. But Cashin did not stop there. He created a scholarship program for young people who had been forced to leave school because of poverty. Saphira became its first recipient and eventually graduated at the top of her class. Years later, she returned to the same restaurant, not as a waitress, but as the youngest financial analyst invited to advise Cashin's company. She walked through the doors wearing a simple suit, carrying the same battered notebook she had carried that humiliating afternoon. Mirella was there. Their eyes met. Saphira smiled first. There was no revenge in her expression. Only peace. Mirella approached her, apologized sincerely, and admitted that she had confused wealth with worth. Saphira accepted the apology because she had learned something more valuable than any degree. People are not defined by their clothes, their jobs, their accents, or their bank accounts. They are defined by what they do when nobody expects anything from them. And that afternoon, the girl everyone called illiterate became the person who taught an entire room what true intelligence looked like. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need a little hope. Special request, comment, kindness sees beyond appearances. If you believe every person deserves to be judged by their heart, not their circumstances. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is carrying the greatest dream. And sometimes the person everyone looks down upon is the very person who will one day teach them how to look up.